I know the fix. There's me. And hold on. I can hear you, but they can't hear you. Hold on. Okay, check. I see us.
Yep.
I see
okay.
us.
I'm clapping.
I see audio. I see the audio things doing things now. I think we're good.
I'm hoping we're good.
But I've said that before. Cool. We got about 60 seconds in, and yeah, we see things, we hear things.
It'd be cool if it works.
Right.
Like a little bit. So if we're audible too, that'd be nice.
Yes, we can hear you both. Hooray!
Computers are fun.
Yes.
It's always a good time.
I thank myself every day for getting into them. Yes, and strangely enough, it's not the Linux PC that's breaking. So.
Oh, I'm running on Debian testing right now, and I've had no issues.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
All of a sudden, you're one of those Linux people that goes, you know what? It works every time with my system. I don't know what's.
Because, like, it's not like I haven't had 50 other problems getting Wayland to work with this thing, like, in the last 2 weeks.
Exactly.
So, yeah, no,
exactly.
we're good.
Your
we're good.
Your F3 key doesn't work either, but other than that, it's great.
There you go. That's how it works.
All right. Can we try this again? Welcome to Talking Heads, everyone. Episode 285. I'm Jeff. She's Veronica. Once week live show... Beer.
Yes. What you drinking, Jeff?
I am drinking. Now, funny enough, I brought out my brand new bottle opener for this. So in case of DNS. Now, in this case, I don't think it was DNS. It may have been DNS, but in case of DNS, open beer. So there you go.
That's exciting.
From Ninkasi down in Eugene, Oregon, we have the Wit Rapids Belgian White. Nice little Belgian beer, 5.5%. Local Oregon brewery. They are absolutely fantastic. And this is one of their new limited releases that I have not tried before. So
okay,
we'll give that a whirl.
Well, that sounds exciting.
Yeah. I know you had a special drink that you were waiting to crack open. What do you got?
So it is a school night, and so I'm not having any alcohol tonight, but I did find this rose lemonade at a store called Target. It's local to the Minneapolis Twin Cities area.
I've heard of it. I've heard of it.
Yes, you might have heard of it, and it's by a brand called Fentimans, and it's botanically brewed.
Ooh.
Which I thought looked interesting, and it says it's crafted, so I figured it works with the theme tonight.
It fits the bill. That's what I will say.
And I am pouring it into my now vintage craft computing mug.
Your OG craft computing, nice.
Yes, it's from before the new stuff that you have on your store.
Yes,
so.
Yeah, and pint glasses will be making a return probably in the next 2 weeks or so. So
cool.
Yeah.
I might get one of those because I like that etched look. It's a nice look you got going on there.
Yeah, no, the new glassware is turning out absolutely fantastic. I've got a couple test pieces, but I'm waiting on a new laser. Not kind of like Linus with his new Wonic. I have laser, then I have new laser, and now I have new laser. And by the time I move into the studio, I'm going to have new laser because I'm already shopping for that one.
That's so cool.
Yes.
That's so fantastic.
Yes. But yeah, so all the glassware right now is being done on a diode laser, and it's an incredibly painfully slow process the way I'm having to do it because there's pre-processing where we actually have to paint on an etching material to the glass, and then you have to let it dry. You can fast dry it, but sometimes that leads to cracking, which will mean the etching won't be even. So it's best to let it air dry. Once it's air dried, you can etch it. 95% of them will come out of that looking fantastic.
Okay.
Then you have to wash it off. Now, unfortunately, the marking material is supposed to be water soluble, so you should be able to toss it in the dishwasher and it comes right off. But you have like this 3-hour working window of if you don't get it off in that amount of time, magic eraser and a lot of elbow grease is basically your only option. Now the etch turns out beautiful, but there's like 20 minutes of processing time per glass, and it's just not feasible to do that as a home business.
Right.
So we're getting a laser that can etch glass directly and do it in like 2 minutes with no pre or post processing.
That's so exciting.
Yes.
That's fantastic. It's super cool. I wish I had the space to do something like that for my merch store. It's like, because that's when we were shopping for our home, we were never imagining like an entire like apparatus for generating merchandise.
Right.
So,
production studio and merchandise and editing rooms and
maybe next house.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen here. But it's very exciting.
One thing I'm actually thinking about doing is something that again Linus Tech Tips kind of threatened doing for a long time, and that's opening up manufacturing capability to other creators. And so one thing that I might do once I have the permanent studio built and then the permanent workshop built is open it up. So if you want to have me make merchandise and ship it, I'll take a small commission, because a lot of the stuff is actually fairly low cost, high profit. It's easy to keep on hand, and it's print on demand. And so it's you want a pint glass with Veronica Explains, you got it, because it's literally the same amount of work as doing a craft computing one.
Right. No, that's super cool.
And so I'm looking
craft
at
logistics in the comments.
Yeah. So that's part of my business plan moving forward, is opening up merch manufacturing to smaller creators. So
that's really cool.
And making it affordable, because one of the biggest hurdles I ran into, something we're just talking shop, but this is fun, is when I did print on demand with my last company, number one, the prices were a lot higher than I wanted. They were like $20 or $25 for a pint glass and $25 a shirt, and I was only making $2 or $3 per sale. Now I can sell those pint glasses for like $12.50. I'm going to make $8 per sale, and I get better quality control over the whole process as well. So just works out better for
exactly
everyone.
it. I've been doing print on demand for like these shirts, and the shirts, they like the margins are pretty tight. So it's one of those things where if I had the opportunity to get like a shop going or something where I could print them and save a buck or two, it's like that could really, I could pass that on to the web store, and it would be fantastic.
Right.
So what you're doing is super cool. It looks really neat.
Thank you. Anyway, for those who don't know, this is Veronica. Welcome to the show. And you want to...
It's so good to be here.
Yes. Do you want to tell everyone kind of who you are, what you do, and what your passions and expertise are in? Oh, there's the Commodore. There you go.
So here's a Commodore 64, and these are fun. My thing is talking about Linux and like retro computing stuff, and really just explaining some of the cool stuff that I've picked up along the way of me working in legacy systems, which is my day job. So what I do is I am a COBOL dev and a system administrator for COBOL on like x86 platform. And so that means I come across a lot of like really old, really cool tech in supply closets and stuff. And so that's basically what I'm doing on the channel, is talking about Linux, but also bringing in a bit of that retro stuff, and then seeing if I can get like Linux working on something of a certain vintage, and seeing if we can get a Commodore 64 and Amiga on the internet, and like little things like that. So it's a lot of fun. I still feel like I'm new at this, but we're having fun, and we're doing cool stuff every day, it seems like.
That's right. Yeah, no, I'm finishing up my 6th year on YouTube, and I still feel like I'm new at this, and I've been doing it full time for 3 years now. So it's kind of insane what my job is now, because
I know I totally see that.
Yeah, it's like I get to sit home on a Wednesday, drink beer, build computers, tinker with Linux, and go like, I wonder if this would work. I wonder if that'd make a good video.
There you go.
I did this kind of crap anyway. It's just now I have a camera on.
Right, there you go. Yeah, no, it's super. That's been one of the fun things about it, is figuring out the gear involved with the cameras and the stuff like that, and getting, like, I have to figure out how to configure the camera to light the thing in just the right way, or to capture the screen so that you can actually see what's on the screen, and it's all kinds of fun.
Yeah, especially when you get into some of the vintage hardware and you're trying to capture CRTs.
Oh yeah,
that has been for the longest time, that was one of the most difficult things to do, because you have NTSC, which is recording at 29.97 or 5996, and you have monitors that are at 30 or 60 hertz exactly, and so there's always this slight idiosyncrasy.
Oh,
and
it's so weird. Yep.
Yeah.
And then you get, like, I found this iMac in the street and I repaired it, and I got it running again, and I think it's a 75 hertz refresh rate. But then the camera needs to then the camera needs to be set at like 96 and change shutter speed in order to sync up the right way so that you don't see the lines. And it's like math, but it's the weird kind of math that isn't very fun. And it's you eventually you nail it, and you put it in, and it's a lot of work, but it's fun in the end.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I've been through that road of trying to get camera gear to work properly with gear, and in fact tonight was like, why isn't anything working?
Yeah, there you go.
Yay. Anyway, fantastic to have you on. We do have some news to get to, and I think we'll just kind of rapid fire it for about the next 20 or 30 minutes. And then probably for the second half of the show, we're just going to kind of open it up to questions, because there's everything from Linux to home lab to retro computing to even more retro computing that we can get into. And that is definitely one of my audience's jams. So let's go ahead.
This will be fun.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get into the news, starting with so Asus. They've been under quite a bit of fire lately, pun intended.
Yeah, that's good.
So this is a story that originally surfaced on Reddit with a couple of different users stating that they had brand new Asus motherboards. One of them was an Asus, one of them was a Gigabyte, but most of the fault ended up falling to Asus for a lot of their BIOS implementations that they were doing with the new AM5 chipsets. Both users reported that their AM5 CPUs, Ryzen X3D CPUs, had bulged underneath the IHS, basically exploding one of the dies inside of the chip and then bulging out from both sides. And in one case, it also took out the motherboard with what looked like fire. Now, I have been critical of some of Gamers Nexus's pieces in the past. This post-mortem was absolutely fantastic by him. A phenomenal piece of journalism, and diving in to find actually the root cause, and not just looking for the quick blame game, which, again, I've been critical of him in the past for some things like that. This one was actually, 100% factual, no punches pulled, and rightfully so. And so you give credit where it's due. And Steve, fantastic job on this one.
No, I thought it was pretty good. The thing about AM5 is I'm glad I haven't upgraded to it yet. And this made me glad I haven't upgraded to it, because there's been some growing pains.
Yes. Yeah,
I'm going to be in the market at some point for a Ryzen upgrade, and I'm been waiting a little bit just to kind of see how things play out. And this whole thing has made me really glad that I don't tend to rush out on day one and go buy something.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And...
yeah, the thing I was thinking of with the whole Gamers Nexus bit is, like, is bad press always bad press? I think this is an example of bad press is just simply bad press. Correct. Where, like, they totally dropped the ball on this. And they got caught.
Not only did they drop the ball on their implementation of the BIOS. Now, if you haven't seen what the actual controversy was. A couple of motherboard vendors were guilty of this, but Asus more than anything else, because by default, it was sending more voltage specifically to the SoC, the system on chip, the I/O die that's on the Ryzen processors, and basically causing it to explode, causing permanent damage and then eventually failure, which led to, in a couple cases, catastrophic failure where power was being sent to the CPU and basically going to ground and then just heating up, and caused the failure of motherboards, CPUs, and in some unconfirmed cases, even some equipment downstream that was being fed power when it shouldn't have been. Anyway,
and they would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those meddling YouTubers.
Those meddling, those meddling Steve Burks. But so definitely a big issue. Now, the reason Asus is kind of in the spotlight here is because their behavior by default basically allowed this issue to persist. It was only if you had enabled precision boost overdrive on a couple of boards, and you were starting to get into some of the esoteric tweaking outside of your memory expo or XMP settings or anything else like that. But on Asus, all of that was enabled by default, which meant this was a problem for everyone. Specifically with X3D boards or the X3D chips.
Yep, this all just makes me happy that I haven't upgraded, because this would have been on my list too. That's the funny thing, is this totally would have been on my radar. Like I've bought a few of their boards before, and like it's, I think my first was like, it was an SLI board, and it was a long time ago. I want to say the M2NE-SLI. Does that sound like one of theirs?
That does sound like an Asus model number. And gosh,
this was my first one I built from them. So
you would have been... Is that a 939 chipset?
I don't remember. In my mind AM2, but I could be totally off. I was in college. I was a broke college student building that computer, and it was the first computer that I built and kind of designed around using it as like a Linux rig. And it was an experience, let me tell you. And Linux was an experience back then, but it turned out okay. But like, I've been buying their stuff for like that long.
Enforce 4 chipset. So DK Vid says that was an Enforce 4 chipset. So yeah, AM2 or AM3.
Okay, I think it was AM2. Yeah, AM2 sounds right to me.
Yeah, and no, 939 is not AM2 or AM3. 939 is the predecessor to AM2.
That's what I thought.
I was speaking more sockets. So yeah. So yeah.
Nope. I'm just glad I skipped this particular section, and it will, like, for me, it'll give me pause about buying one of their boards again. So.
Right. Now, there have been a lot of growing pains with AM5, and I think that is actually partially down to where we are in the market in general. Is for so long, for nearly a decade, there was not the exponential increase in power and efficiency that we have been known for. The whole Intel's Moore's Law. That was kind of dead for almost 10 years. And then all of a sudden, in the last 2 years, it's back with a vengeance, where it's like, oh, this is the curve that we were on for, like, system builders from, the 90s and 2000s. Like, I was used to that kind of curve where you build a 350 megahertz PC, and then literally 6 months later, they're breaking the gigahertz barrier. And that was single core and per clock. Oh, there was also efficiency upgrades in that as well. So you were literally 3 to 4 times slower 6 months later. It was absolutely nuts. And we're kind of starting to see that again, where for the longest time it was 7%, 7%, 7% year over year. And
small incremental kind of
and you can
iterative upgrade.
You could hold on to a graphics card or a CPU for 6 years and then find the upgrade, and you're like, oh yeah, I just finally doubled my performance. And yeah, not anymore. I have chips around here from even like 2019, like Zen 2 and beginning Zen 3 CPUs. These are literally twice as fast now.
It's
18 to 24 months later, they're literally twice as fast, both Intel and AMD. The problem with that is we're also starting to run into some of the growing pains that we saw in the gigahertz race era time.
Right.
Maybe they're not as stable or as long-lasting as they should be because they're trying to crank so much voltage into such a tiny space. And I mean, back then we were talking 2.5 volts.
Right. Yeah.
And now it's 1.3. But so much voltage, current.
I remember the controversy. So I'm gonna pull something out. We're talking vintage. So I'm pulling out a board
in the bag.
Which I prepared because it's show and tell.
All right.
So here's a 486 board
DX2
that I just found this at Free Geek, and I'm assembling a 486. It's gonna be great. And I remember the controversy around, I mean, I was a kid, but I remember still the idea that you had to actually put like a cooler on this.
Right. Yeah.
Like that was an issue.
No thermal paste, just like an aluminum heat sink and a little 40 mil fan. Like that's all it was.
It was a thing. It was a concern. And it's, it reminds me of like sometimes the technology moves faster than people's expectations of it do.
Right.
And when that happens, you can end up with a communications disconnect, like a breakdown of from the marketing department is not necessarily thinking through the engineering department.
Which is not necessarily thinking of the end use of a consumer, which is not
exactly. Yeah. Which may or may not, but probably is the reason Commodore died.
Probably a good contributing factor.
There was a whole lot of not like paying attention to each other in that company, and I don't think we're gonna see them go away, or I don't think we're gonna see Asus go away anytime soon. But like this hurts. This feels bad.
Now, part of the reason that Asus is under so much fire is also because of their response to this issue, where they knowingly sent too much voltage to the SoC, knowingly enabled basically all of their overclocking features by default, trying to give the consumer the best value or perceived value on their boards. But at the same time, unless you're a reviewer and you're going through CPU by CPU and board by board, you're not going to notice that difference. And so I've always been confused by out-of-the-box overclocking from a motherboard standpoint, where if I were a motherboard manufacturer, I would value stability over anything else.
Absolutely.
Because if I have problems with, for years, it was Gigabyte that always gave me problems, like in the early 2010s, where I'd fire up a Gigabyte board and invariably would wind up with random blue screens and memory misconfigurations and everything. And so for a while, I'd sworn off Gigabyte. And I think I've sworn off just about everyone at some point, except maybe EVGA.
Sure.
But yeah,
they haven't irritated you yet.
They haven't. Yeah. Just they can't with graphics cards anymore.
There you go.
But yeah, like if I were a motherboard manufacturer, I would value stability because it's all about customer experience, and they're not going to notice the difference between 140 and 150 FPS, but they will notice random blue screens and crapping out hardware and crashes, and that's what the customer experience is.
Especially with a motherboard. Like that's the thing. Like a GPU, you can argue that like on day one or first few months it's enthusiasts and you can kind of do what you want. But motherboards, like I was helping somebody build her first computer last week, and like she doesn't know the parts yet. She's coming into this for the first time.
Right.
And the motherboard is the thing you expect to be the most stable out of all of the components.
Right.
That you're assembling, like that's maybe the RAM or like the SSD. It's you expect a very basic level, and the overclocking out of the box. If it overclocks out of the box, you didn't overclock it. You just changed its settings.
You just turned it on, right?
Yeah, exactly. Overclocking ought to be a thing that you have to opt into, not like opt out of. That's because I think most people don't expect it, at least when they're building.
Right.
Enthusiasts, sure, but your average person building a computer, I don't necessarily see that.
Yeah. Anyway, Asus...
That's a great thumbnail.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Asus, at one point, issued a BIOS update that was a beta BIOS and said, this might solve your problem. It also might not. By the way, also installing this BIOS will void your warranty. So if it ends up blowing up your computer anyway, now we're not liable. Which is not the way warranties work, by the way.
No.
But anyway, Asus has come full circle after... very deserved scrutiny by Gamers Nexus and the community at large, that Asus AM5 motherboard warranties will always cover AMD Expo, Intel XMP, and DOCP memory configurations. All recent BIOS updates follow the latest AMD voltage guidelines for AMD Ryzen 7000 processors. They will also warranty if you installed a beta BIOS. Furthermore, we would like to reiterate our commitment to supporting the AMD AM5 platform and our customers. For any inquiries about your Asus AM5 motherboard, please contact our customer service for support. That is their official statement. So...
sounds real good.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, not the time to try to be circling the wagons. Like that time was before you launched this, knowing that it was potentially unstable and outside of guidance from AMD. Now, AMD is definitely partially to blame because they did not give the best guidance on it, because the 1.45-ish volts that were being sent to the SoC has been okay in the past. In fact, 1.40 and 1.45 was a common voltage for overclocking the SoC when you're trying to get RAM to work at the speeds it's supposed to.
Sure.
But there was very little guidance around 7000 series from AMD. There was some documentation about burst rates and things like that, but there wasn't much more concrete to go on. There wasn't like exact guidelines of this is what this chip is capable of over a duration of time. So some of this does fall to AMD. I don't want them to get out without holding some of this bag. But
no, and I wouldn't be surprised to find out, like, because if you probably know the answer off the top of your head. Wasn't there a chipset where AMD was saying it had a certain heat, like a certain topping out point where it would throttle back, and then it turned out it was something different? Like, I remember there being an issue where the temperature reported on the die was not the same as the temperature reported in the EFI.
That's a little bit of a yes, partially. I'm
just thinking about the company getting out in front of its skis on something.
Right.
Like, it's not surprising.
So AMD started doing this a couple of years ago, specifically on their graphics cards, and a couple of the companies actually followed suit, Nvidia and Intel both, with usually you have thermal probes, and you'll just report the average of the thermal probes that you have. So if you have like 6 thermal probes on a GPU die, for example, you'll report just the average of those. What AMD started doing is reporting the average temp, but also the hottest temp. And the hottest temp is sometimes way hotter than you might expect. And that's by design, and it's okay. As PC enthusiasts, anytime we see something over 95C, we tend to freak out. But we also forget that MOSFETs are designed to run at 125C. Sometimes certain silicon is designed to run at 110. Like, it's all within the mechanics of how it works. When AMD came out, I believe... was it the first Navi chips with the 5700 XT or something like that?
See, that sounds familiar to me. That does sound familiar.
I believe it was Navi, where they came out with both an average temp on the GPU die as well as an edge temp. And the edge temp, so your standard temp was like 76, and that's the one that most people would read. It's like, oh, it's keeping it fairly cool, 8
Right.
degrees cooler than Nvidia, like that means anything. But then they'd have an edge temp of like 106, and people are going, oh
Sure.
my god, my GPU is literally melting. No, it's fine. It's okay. It's designed to do that. We're just trying to get more data into everyone's hands and know what it's doing on every single level, but it's fine, I promise. So yeah, that was less of a way hotter than it's intended to run. It's not actually throttling. But
I remember they had to get some communications out about it, where they realized in the middle of, because I saw this when I built my current Ryzen build, where it's like, I remember watching a video from AMD where they were trying to explain this to me like I was 12, because I needed it, because it was just so off from what I was used to.
Right.
Whenever I'm building a computer, and like I had to rewrite scripts about like what to do in certain cases, and like it messed with my whole flow, and enthusiasts don't like their flow being messed with.
No. We also don't like our core values or understandings of how text works questioned.
Right. There you go.
I always love, I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus, but there was a video that came out a little while ago about a motherboard that I particularly like, about it literally melts down and how is this acceptable and whatnot. And they're freaking out about VRM temperatures. By the way, when this CPU is overclocked from 45 watts to 85 watts, about the VRM temperatures hitting 95C. And I looked up the part number, and it's 125 degree.
Oh, so it can take
MOSFET.
it.
It's like, as long as the solder's not liquefying, what are you worried about?
Which can happen. I mean, I suppose at a certain
something red ring of
energy
death.
level. Yeah. Yep. It'll be great.
What's funny is I also have another story related to solder melting. So I have a Nissan 350Z, and it has a Bose sound system in it, and it's great car. Love the car. But the Bose amplifier, I guess, has some capacitors on them that will come desoldered in heat. So if, inside of a car gets 150 degrees, they'll slowly melt and crack the solder joints. You can fix it.
There's heat in there.
Right. You could fix it either by resoldering it, but who's got time for that? Instead, you can take there's a heatsink on the back of it. If you take a quarter and you shim the heatsink between the heatsink and the casing, it presses it down and makes it connect. And so that's how mine is fixed.
That's some classic engineering.
Yep.
That sounds like I've been reading like IBM bulletins about like debugging your mainframe, and like it sounds like the kind of thing they just say, oh, just stick a quarter in it.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like just jump it, take a paper clip and jump that wire, and then you're good. Everything's fine.
My favorite anecdote related to that, and then I think we'll move on to the retro story, because this one I'm really excited for.
Ooh, okay.
So I had an old server engineer named Pat, and he's the guy that I took over my position when I became the systems administrator, later on tech director, and so on. Great guy, great guy to learn under, but old school, like 1980s mainframe systems administration and whatnot. He goes, it was always funny, because if there was ever a problem with like an HP or a compact, like tower server kind of thing.
Sure.
It wasn't them sending you a software update. It was a guy who would show up with a soldering iron, and he would scrape the PCB and then jumper wires to correct a hardware issue. And he goes, I'll never forget one of the days this HP engineer was in, and he was supposed to be fixing one of our servers, an issue on one of the servers, and he opened it up and he goes, oh, I see you have revision C because of the jumpers that were on the board.
Okay.
So instead of new PCBs being minted, you would just have a tech walk around and jumper and so you have model 760 revision C.
I've seen so many punch cards where somebody's like, oh, I'll fix this bug, and then they punch new holes in the car. It's fixed. Run it again.
We'll just comment out this line.
Yeah, we'll comment how this goes. It's delightful.
All right. If you excuse me for 2 seconds, I'm going to grab my second beer out of the fridge because it is 7 o'clock.
Okay. There we go. I'm trying to think of what I should say. Quick, let's install Linux.
And I'm back.
You didn't hear me.
Oh, I didn't hear you. I had my headphones out.
No, I was joking. I said, while you're gone, quick, let's install Linux.
You know, if this is the PC that I like run my business from, like this is where I do all my design, all my scripting, all my benchmarking, all my capturing, all my streaming. This is the PC. I can't wait for the day when I move to the new office and I can have my streaming PC just be Linux and my workstation PC just be Linux. And then the one that I have to do benchmarking and capture on, that can run Windows. Like that's just fine. But I still want that.
It's so hard to have everything on one system.
Yeah.
And it's so challenging to justify the space and having everything on different systems.
Yes. Yeah, that's precisely it.
Yeah.
So I have 2 main desktops. I have my streaming PC and my editing PC. That's the common names that we refer them to. But Rhett uses that one and I use this one. And we both do everything. We both do a little editing. We both do a little benchmarking. We both do writing. We both do all that kind of stuff. And so it's just where we sit. And but the PCs do have different hardware. Like I have the capture card, he's got the audio gear. And so, you know, if I need to do voiceover, I've got to go over there and do my voiceover work. And then I've got to come back over here and do the Photoshop for the thumbneml. And then I've got to capture the B-roll off. It's just maddening sometimes.
I totally hear you.
Yeah. One of the things we're really hoping to do is create bespoke stations for different tasks within the business. And so I can actually have a test bench that I can sit down and test things on and do all of my capture and do all of benchmarking and everything else. And then when we're ready to shoot that, I can just walk it over, set it on the table, and we can shoot. We can shoot the video.
Absolutely.
Because right now it's like an hour or sometimes even 2 hours to completely reset everything that you're doing, because I've been working on 2 different projects at my desk here, which is also the desk we use to film, but that's not the project that we're filming today. It gets messy quick.
Absolutely it does. I'm in the middle of moving everything out of my basement so I can actually move my recording rig into the basement, because I share it with my entire family. Like this is where we all do like crafts and stuff. Like this is basically our like project room. And I would love to be able to actually like set the camera up where I do solder projects or where I'm doing like you know, design stuff and actually just have that space. So that's my project. Hopefully for the summer we get that done, because that'll be fun.
Nice. All right. So for those wondering, I'm drinking a Block 15 Favorable Fortune Dry Irish Stout.
Ooh.
And very much looking forward to this.
I just cracked open a sparkling water from a company called Waterloo. I would guess it's out of Iowa, but I don't know for sure. And it is a blackberry lemonade. Nice. So this will be good.
Nice. Yeah, believe it or not, when I'm not drinking beer, I'm usually drinking like sparkling waters and things like that. And so I do like a good sparkling water.
Well, I'm from Minnesota and we have La Croix or LaCroix or whatever you call it. Yeah. It's like the thing. Yeah. And so like we're inundated by it from a very young age.
Yeah. Yeah, we had some different variations of sparkling water, very similar, you know, the 5-calorie, you know, sparkling water drinks. I've been really digging the Liquid Death lately. I don't know if you've tried those, but
no, I haven't tried that.
Those are really, really good. So.
Does it have anything like caffeine in it? Because like if it has caffeine in it.
Nope, no caffeine, unfortunately. There are some out there that do though. So
yeah. No, I found a few that I like that do, and it's like I'm always on the lookout for more. Especially if it keeps me from having to do like another coffee in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Because I tend to be the only one in the house that actually wants the second coffee at like 5.
Yeah.
No one else seems to want that, so it is what it is.
I usually start my day with a cup of coffee, and then sometimes I'll have another one at like 1, right after lunch, but...
I am of Scandinavian and Italian descent, which means I have very strong opinions about coffee, but I'm afraid to share them.
I'm primarily Italian, so I talk with my hands a lot and drink a lot of coffee.
Yep, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
We got to talk about this 386.
Yes, we do.
Yes, I am so excited about the 386.
So... If you haven't been following along with some of the AliExpress weird crap that shows up from time to time, this is something to get super excited about. Unfortunately, they are already sold out. Fortunately,
I saw that.
I bought one.
Ooh! That's exciting!
I might be willing to share too, so...
Okay, so we'll talk.
We'll
talk
on
offline.
That. We will work on that.
It'll be good.
Anyway... an unknown manufacturer came out with a product known as the Hand 386. Now, gaming handhelds are kind of all the rage right now. Obviously, you can point to the Steam Deck, but retro handhelds have been a thing for probably the last 7 to 10 years. Getting, Game Boy Advanced and PSP games into your hand where you don't have to use your cell phone. You can actually get, good controls, a good quality screen, and a good experience. But...
The analog pocket comes to mind,
yes.
Which is my current thing to play and enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, analog pocket, fantastic device.
A lot of fun.
But there's always one platform that gets left out from a lot of the retro gaming stuff, and it's the PC. Where's the PC Mini? Where's the retro handheld PC? Well, fear not, there is now a retro handheld PC with period correct hardware.
It's so cool.
For $200. This is one of the coolest things I've seen in a long time. So this is not an FPGA. This is not a knockoff recreation. This is a brand new chassis, keyboard, and display. It's a 7-inch 640 by 480 display. And I should pull up the link so we can see the internals. 640
by 480 being the best possible screen resolution that's ever been.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's all you need.
Yeah. So this was on AliExpress for about $210. But if we scroll down to the internals, these are new old stock or desoldered internals from that day that are put onto a bespoke PCB. We've got a chips video card with 1 megabyte of video memory. We've got an OPL3 sound chip capable of Yamaha MIDI and Sound Blaster compatibility. We've got a DNMP, which is actually an Nvidia system on chip using an Intel 386 SX x86 40 megahertz chip, as well as Nvidia system on chip goodness from back in the day. This is like a CPU from 1992. With 8 megabytes of memory. It also has an 8-bit ISA slot.
That's all you need.
Via a breakout board. So even if you wanted to add some of your ISA components, you can break those out and plug them in with the help of a daughter board.
That's so cool.
It supports VGA output, PS2 mouse and keyboard. It has dual socketable BIOS chips for your VGA and your system BIOS. It also runs off a battery and has a USB port. Plus, all your storage is compact flash. So if you wanted to just image a compact flash card, toss it in there, and start playing all of your Windows 3.1 and DOS games, it'll do everything.
This is all the computer anyone has ever needed.
Mm-hmm.
This is better than anything else.
Bill Gates said, what could we possibly do with more than 12 megahertz? And you've got 40 here.
Yeah, 40. That's like some extra megahertz. The big thing I was thinking is there's one thing it's missing to make it just perfect in my mind, and that is onboard floppy.
Yeah.
There is no onboard floppy. Now, it does have the daughter board thing.
It does have the daughter board. now there is a USB port on here, and this is one thing
which is interesting.
This is one thing that I'm curious about, because some BIOS, if you install a USB floppy drive, it will be seen by DOS natively because the BIOS handles it as a standard ATA.
Yeah.
And so there's a possibility this USB port will allow you to connect a floppy drive and have it read in DOS, no drivers.
That would be cool.
That's just so like
one of the things. Yeah, I know. This is so amazing. One of the things I was interested in is I don't know off the top of my head what version of DOS this thing is running, and
it says it supports 6.2.2 and 7.1.
So it supports.
Yes.
So now this has me thinking that you could actually get a USB floppy drive set up on it. But it's my one little thing. Like it's already thick enough. They could have worked a floppy drive onto it.
That would have been.
I know you can't find floppy drives anymore though.
No.
That's the issue.
No.
And so I'm now in lieu of a floppy drive. This is one thing I was thinking of with that USB.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen a GoTech.
Yeah, I
okay. Yep. Yep. If for folks who aren't familiar with the GoTech, it's a floppy replacement that works over USB and images. So like you can take the floppy drive out of something like an Amiga or like an old 386 or something, and you can pop in a GoTech, which then it has on the one end it connects to the floppy. Yep, there it is. Perfect. Yep, on the one end, it connects through whatever floppy interface your device requires. And then on the other end, you've got USB, and you can image your USB stick for however many floppies you want.
Right.
This could be the one true way to experience the floppy goodness on like a board of this type. Because I think this seems really cool, and I'd like to see how they're doing it.
I would love to see how they're doing it. Now, the really funny thing is there's a lot of enthusiast communities that are starting to recreate, basically motherboards using very similar techniques to this. Either desoldering, new old stock kind of stuff, and creating their own things. One of the first that really became popular was probably Rasterai with the PC104 concept of taking a PC104 300 megahertz, creating his own daughter board that had a Sound Blaster compatible chip that was a brand new chip, and boom, he's got the fastest ever 486 clone.
Yep.
In a mini PC format, smaller than an Intel NUC. So
I just ordered on a similar vein, I just ordered the Aegon Lite, which if I don't know if it, okay, so people are familiar with the Commander X16 by the 8-bit guy. And this is an example of, building something new out of at least, there's the Commander X16. It's a cool website. And there's a lot of cool stuff I'm seeing starting up around that platform. But if that price point is too much, and I think it's going to be for some people. Like, I know I balked at the price, considering it is not compatible with like the existing Commodore 64, 6502 library.
Right.
There's a lot it can't do. There are a bunch of enthusiasts working on stuff that does similar things. Like the Aegon Lite is one I just ordered. It hasn't arrived yet. I had to order it from the distributor. And there's a lot of other little groups that are working on other similar boards, and when they're ready, they're going to be phenomenal. There's going to be so many really cool ways to like bit bang some old like chips and figure out assembly and rebuild some new games or some old games on new hardware that you can actually like acquire, because that's the thing that sucks about this is like these are now such collector's items that they're unobtainable. And I'm
not
ridiculous.
Going to pay $300 to re-experience Commodore 64 if I'm just trying to dabble in it. I'm just going to run an emulator, which also doesn't get you the full experience.
No, and I love these projects that are bringing this down in cost and bringing this down in space, and really letting us experience it in a similar way we've learned to love the Raspberry Pi and other single board computers, because that really does encourage tinkering in a way that I think is accessible for people of all skills, of all age levels, of, you know, like, just if you want to dabble, or if you want to see about maybe a second career in hardware design, like, these are really good ways to figure that out and just get used to it and just see what you like. And I love that there are enthusiasts building this sort of thing.
Yes. Did you see the other PC this manufacturer created?
No. Oh wait, is this? Yes. Okay, I did see this. This is cool.
The 8086 book, or the 8088 book. Again, also
about
$200. But an original Intel 8086, 4.72 megahertz CPU. You can get it as just the chip and the motherboard. You can also get it with the OPL3 sound card. You can also get it with the breakout board for ISA and a couple other things. You can also get it with the optional 8087 coprocessor.
You need your floating point? We got your floating point.
Yeah, you need your FPU? We got you. Right.
That's great.
Yeah. I could see myself using the 386 more than I could the 8086, but I almost bought one of these two. Like, I was so close.
The 8086 is, I mean, there's a lot of really cool things you can do with an 8086, but like, if you're going to spend the money on retro hardware pre-Pentium era, in my opinion, if you're after DOS, if that's the universe you want to live in, which is a good universe, don't get me wrong, but in that universe, I think your best bet is a 486 or 386, and you're gonna have the most compatibility with everything.
I think a 486 DX2 with a turbo button, and you will be able to run anything from that era, period.
And you need that turbo button, because they're like, I'll never forget. Well, I'll never forget my disappointment in like games that relied on the clock speed in order to regulate like the actual play. And when you increase the speed, you end up breaking the compatibility with the game you want to play. Like, I was playing Pong, and it's completely unplayable because if you play it on anything faster than, you know, like a couple of megahertz, it's gonna break, and you're just gonna see this. And that's all you're gonna see.
And that's what Wing Commander was. Wing Commander was made for a 286 12 megahertz, and if you run it on a 486, surprise, it runs literally 6 times faster. And it's unplayable. But if you had a turbo button, it'll disable your XMP, it'll disable your extended memory, and it will also disable your gosh, what else did it do? It did a couple of things, but basically it turned your 486 into a 286.
It slowed it down enough to make the game enjoyable.
Right, exactly. There's a couple schools of thought of bringing back old PCs like that. Number one, I love the concept of the hand 386. That's so cool. It is a 386 PC, recreated original hardware. You can download the original drivers and play pretty much anything that you would think would be compatible with that level of hardware. I'm also always interested in the FPGA approach, so the Analog Pocket or the Mister project of recreating the hardware from scratch and getting clock perfect hardware emulation. And I think both are phenomenal approaches. Obviously, FPGA probably requires a little bit more legwork and will probably incur some more costs as the project goes along. If you've ever tried to buy a Mister, you know they're probably $400 to $450 and up if you want like the full package and want to be able to run all your cores and have all the different outputs and things. Whereas something like this, $200, you've got a 386 and you're off and rocking.
It really, you know, like, I don't think there's any wrong way to retro. It, you know, like, I know some people get really into this, and I'm sure there are be people in the comments who are like, oh, you're wrong. There's only one. You have to use original hardware, because I get those comments all the time.
Screw the purists.
Yeah, well, right, exactly. It's just whatever you if you're like, this comes up with Amiga. It doesn't matter if you're Amiga-ing on a modern computer, or if you're Amiga-ing on an Amiga, or if you're Amiga-ing on a Mister, or if you're Amiga-ing on a Pi. It does, like, you're still participating in the ecosystem. You're still sharing in the love of the community,
Right.
even if you're doing it on modern hardware. And the people who actually build this stuff, they like that people are interested. They're just excited that people are part of it. And I don't think we need to be such purists about the different ways to do it.
Right.
My personal preference is toward hardware. I've got the stuff, but like, I also, part of that comes from the privilege of working in legacy systems where, like, you know, there are people who chase the latest JavaScript dev thing, and they get to experience people who are like, who understand, like, who have access to M2 Max or, you know, things like that. When you work in legacy systems, one of the perks is that you'll walk into a server room and there's like a terminal just sitting there. Because somebody had, because that's what they built it on. Like, it's one of the advantages to it. And so,
what
like,
is that?
for me,
that runs our HVAC.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
ask me how I know.
The 386 I just pulled out of, you know, like somebody's printer room because it's the thing that runs their invoice printer. You know, these things aren't. It's one of the perks of the job. And so because of that, I was able to kind of dig into some of this stuff, and that's a privilege. I certainly wouldn't fault somebody for not wanting the Power Mac 9600, either because of space or energy or cost. You know, these things aren't cheap.
Right. I do have a couple of vintage PCs around. I've got, I wish I still had. I had one of the Power Mac G3 towers, not the beige ones, but the one when they went turquoise. And so it was the iMac plastic, but on a Power Mac G3. It was the full tower. That's the computer that I had in college, and
sure.
I also had the matching 21-inch Trinitron monitor for it, and keyboard and mouse, and I had everything, and I want that computer back. But you can't obtain them anymore. I think I sold it for $200 for the combo sometime in like 2012, because it's like, I just need this crap out of my office now.
Right.
Now it's like, it's $1,000 for that tower. It's like, that's ridiculous. Just to re-get a G3. Do you know how plentiful G3 supply was back in the day? And
I do.
And I say this about Nintendo products. Okay, it is so insanely frustrating to me. Hi, Jeff.
Yeah, bye, Jeff. Jeff shouting out the 9600.
Yep. It is so insanely frustrating to me when I want to buy my kids like a Game Boy Advance SP or something like that. Like, hey, I've got a full Game Boy library. I don't want you playing on mine, but you know, we'll go buy you one. And a Game Boy Advance SP is like $150. It's a console that sold 140 million units. It's not rare. It's not collectible. It's not. Some of them are like the one that I had, which had the NES skin on it, the original.
Yeah.
I had one of those at one point, but
that's nice.
There's a couple you could put a little bit higher dollar value on, but they're not worth more than they were at retail 20 years ago. And I don't understand some of the enthusiast and collectible communities that think that their Beauty and the Beast VHS is worth $400, or that
it's
Game Boy Advance SP is worth $150, or a 3DS is worth $350. It's like, those were sold in the tens of millions.
Yes. I mean, it's only worth that if people are paying for it.
Right.
And that's the, like, in my mind, that's the kicker. Like, if we, like, you know, Commodore 64, okay, if I spend $1,500 on a Commodore 64, then to me it was worth $1,500. Right. But we should, if somebody's asking for something irrational like that, and we know we can find it locally for less,
Yeah.
Hopefully we find it locally for less. That's one of the things I absolutely adore about where I live, which is the Twin Cities, is that we have a Free Geek. And Free Geek,
we do have one in Portland too. So.
Yes, I was gonna say.
Yes.
Contrary to their name, it's not free stuff, but they take in old electronics, and when they find a gem, they make it available. And the community around Free Geek is phenomenal because, like, I can say something like, "Oh, hey, I'm looking for a Kensington Expert mouse because I have a DAW that needs that wants the fourth button on that wants the fourth button on a Kensington Expert mouse." And like somebody's like I got you. Like here, you want $25? We'll do $25. You know, like it's reasonable.
Boppets for you anymore? Like
yes, they are. They're holding boppets for me, which is exciting.
That's not fair.
But it's because it's a community, and it's so wonderful that it reminds me of like the Linux user groups. You know, like we used to have like local community Linux user groups like 15 years ago because nobody'd heard of Linux. So like this is how we were getting people installed and helping configure it. And it's just wonderful to have. I wish every community had such a cool retro thing.
I learned about Linux from my BBS server. So.
Yes, there you go. Jumped right from BBS to Linux.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You're already used to the terminal. It's fine.
That's right. Yeah. I knew DOS. I could write a batch file. Like
you could write a batch file.
I am definitely not a developer. I'm not a programmer. I can't think that way. I'm very linear in a lot of my thoughts. So hardware and I get along great.
Sure.
Python and I get along great. And that's about
Python.
it.
Yeah, Python's great. There's nothing wrong with that though.
No.
Like if you're doing it, it's fine.
Yeah. And yeah, on the programming side of things, I understand my limitations and everyone always asks like, how do you get like the vGPU stuff to work and how do you get this to work and how did you do WDS? And my answer is always kind of the same. If I can read from like 40 different people, I can usually tend to suss out X, Y, Z, here's the order that you do things in. And so I'm usually the one that like, okay, I took like these 90 parts. I'm going to put them all together in one tutorial. And if you do it this way, it'll work. At least on my hardware. So
it works on my machine.
It works on my machine.
I can't say that when I'm working on a server though. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Because my machine's your machine.
It's just someone else's computer.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Couple more quick news stories to jump into. I think we're going to skip the AMD one. We're going to go straight to Logitech because right to repair, near and dear to my heart.
Absolutely.
Logitech taps iFixIt in a growing number of companies who is sourcing iFixIt to start selling replacement parts direct from OEM, essentially. So Logitech is starting with a lot of their MX Master and MX Anywhere mouse parts first, but eventually plans on having essentially their entire parts library available through iFixIt. And if you're a right to repair junkie like I am, that you believe your hardware and whatnot should live forever, this is fantastic. There's a couple of mice that I've gotten rid of that served me well for like 5 years that if I could have just replaced the laser inside of, I'd have totally done it.
Absolutely.
You know, your scroll wheel isn't working anymore. Cool. That's a micro switch. It's like 60 cents and you can resolder it. I would have totally done that. There's a couple funny adages that I like that. I am definitely a mouse junkie. I love mice. I as much as I love keyboards. There's only 2 mice that I will buy, though. One of them is Elecom, and the other is Logitech, and neither one of them I can get samples for. So, it's the epitome of put your money where your mouth is. The only mice that I own are Elecom and Logitech. Period.
Yep. I don't know that there's any other. I mean, I own some Commodore mice, but that doesn't really count. And I do like I mean, I like my Kensington mice, but like only in certain circumstances. Like if I'm working on music, I tend to like the really big,
the giant,
square, like a cue ball.
Oh yeah,
that I like. It feels like I'm rolling a cantaloupe along my desk,
if
and
I'm
that's
playing
what
Golden
you want.
Tee, the Kensington is no question. Yeah.
Oh man, Golden Tee. That okay. Yep. Anyway, the thing about this I love the repair. I mean, yes, we should be like, this is the thing I'm excited for. I think Logitech did exactly the right thing. The thing that struck me about it is I'm sitting here thinking, like, why is this such a big deal news-wise? This should just be the way it is.
It should
this
be the way it is.
Be news. You know, like, why are we accepting crumbs when, like, we should be able to just bake a cake?
Thank you. I had a great conversation.
This doesn't make sense.
I had a great conversation with Rhett here in the office the other day about the PC industry is so weird because there's no other industry that will sell you pieces to something. And those pieces work with any other pieces and you can build it yourself. Sure. But in the same sentence, if they made something that is complete, you are not allowed to touch any aspect of it. So if I buy, you know, an Asus motherboard, I can put an AMD CPU and an Nvidia graphics card and Noctua fans and a Be Quiet case and a you know, fractal design power supply and run whatever software I want. No one cares. In fact, not only does no one care, whatever you do is 100% acceptable there.
Right.
But if I buy an Asus laptop,
yep,
they hold on.
It's ridiculous.
Right. They hold on to that like nothing else. And no, you can't buy the left hinge to an Asus VivoBook Pro. No, of course not. You can't buy a replacement trackpad. How dare you think you can replace your own battery? And
no, it's absurd.
Whereas we have the automotive market, which is the complete polar opposite. You can't put any parts together yourself and then drive it on the road, but you can buy any part from any manufacturer you want, and they still have to honor your warranty.
Right. I mean, we should be in a better place than this, and it bothers me. I get passionate about right to repair, not just because I'm like a vintage tech junkie and like this. Like my Commodore 64 is endlessly repairable.
Yeah.
You know, until the original chips die, and even then people are figuring out replacements.
Yeah.
Everything is becoming something, you know, if we haven't built a complete Commodore 64 or Amiga 500 from like all new parts, we will soon.
Yeah.
It's coming. It's gonna happen. And I don't understand why we as a society accept this. This seems like something where, like, I would think everybody would be on board with guaranteeing a right to repair. This doesn't seem like there's really any controversy around. It's not saying you have to repair it. It's just right to repair.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why there would be opposition to it other than from big businesses who don't want to make things that you can repair.
And I think that's the basis of it. And if you look at a lot of public comment, and you can even go into as big of a battle as net neutrality with the proven comments and the fines that are being levied against Verizon, Comcast, Cox, you know, the usual, you know, crew there, and right to repair, and the grassroots efforts of like, no, we just want to buy new products, which is absolute bullshit, and everyone knows that from the but you look at the usual suspects there, and it's your Apples and your Samsungs and your who say we would just rather sell you a new thing and then recycle your old thing because we make way more money on the new thing, and we just want to keep making money.
We just want to keep making money. And it bothers me because like we should be able to accept that growth is not endless. Like this is, I know that it's hard to imagine like a scenario in which we have tech companies like the big ones, like your Apples and your Samsungs,
just kind of plateau and remain like 80% profitable for a decade. Like,
yeah, why is that not acceptable?
Yeah,
that should be I know why it's not acceptable.
If I could achieve that as a company, oh,
right. But like shareholders don't accept it,
right?
And that's a big part of this. And I don't see any resolution to this short of regulation.
Correct.
That's the only thing I see. And right to repair ought to be one of these just obvious wins for everybody.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't necessarily like, you know, as much as I hate soldered on memory as an example, I wouldn't hate it so much if I could remove it, you know, with a solder station and put a new memory on there and know it was going to work. You know, like at least, even if you're going to make the super thin thing with the soldered on memory, at least give us replacement parts if we want to try to take that on ourselves, or take it to a professional shop who can do it for us.
We complain that there's no one in the US that repairs electronics anymore, but the reason no one repairs electronics anymore is there's nothing to repair because we don't have the parts to do it.
Yep, that's exactly it.
If you walk down any street in Shenzhen, you can have the memory on your Android phone swapped out in 20 minutes while you wait. Like you can have whatever you want done to whatever electronic device you've ever, within a 20-minute walk, you could have it done. And
it just boggles my mind.
We insist on, you know, well, there's no American manufacturing anymore, and there's no there's no TV repair guy. That's because you disallowed TV repair guys. It's not because we didn't want them.
You made the TV this thin,
right?
And then
glued
took
it
away
shut.
all the parts. And the TV repair people are like, yeah, we don't want to do this anymore.
Have you ever successfully taken apart a Microsoft Surface?
No, never.
Nope.
No, I haven't been able to try.
You could have like if you want to go to the argument of like, you know, right to repair versus you know, adversity to repair. Fusing the glass panel onto LCDs if you're Apple, or using literally nature's thinnest glass that you could possibly manufacture if you're Microsoft. You could have a 30-cent part go bad in a Microsoft Surface Book and have it destroy the machine. The only way to get into it is by destroying the LCD panel and the touch screen. So a 30-cent repair and then maybe $50 at a repair shop becomes $400.
I'm holding here my Galaxy S20, which is my last phone. And I'm struck by, when I take it out of its case, how thin it is. But the funny thing is, I would never in my life walk around with it without this big, thick case. Is that the Pixel 7?
Pixel 5a. So,
Pixel 5a. Yeah. I actually just bought the Pixel 7.
Nice.
My next video is going to be about Graphene OS. I'm test driving Graphene OS. So it's fun. That's going to be exciting. Anyway, that's not what it's about, though. They make the thing thin, but then you have to buy the case to keep it safe because I'm so afraid to break something because I can't repair it.
Yeah.
And just give me a thicker phone I can repair. If you're gonna do this, I don't need it to be thin.
Give me
I just
one
want to
that is not literally made of glass.
Yes. Like, I don't know, maybe.
Like, I understand growing pains when we're getting used to new technology, bendable screens, curvable screens, flexible displays, etc. Like, yeah, there's going to be a premium to those phones. There's going to be, you know, some things that don't. But for God's sakes, it's like glass jaw is a phrase for a very good reason. And don't make a phone that I'm going to drop out of glass and then blame me for breaking it.
And like, the thing that gets me about this is that we've asked people. Opinion polling consistently shows that people want things they can repair. People want things that last longer. Like, I'm sitting here, I don't know if you can hear this, but I'm sitting here rocking an IBM Model M.
I can hear. That's a very distinct clickety clack.
It's a very distinct clicky clack. It is a 70-year, like it's going to be a 70-year keyboard. It's going to run for 70 years. Yep. I'm convinced that at the my entire life is going to be spent on this keyboard. And it's perfect. And it's endlessly repairable if I need to repair it.
Yes.
I can, there are still companies making keycaps, making the stems, making
the springs, the flappies,
the springs. Like, I mean, sure, it takes some work, but I can do this. And the thing is, it would fetch a premium, and it would justify that premium if this thing were made new, which now some companies are making them new. And and this is a phenomenal design. It's not thin, it's not light, it's not pretty, but people want stuff that lasts. At least a good chunk of consumers care more about it lasting a long time than they do about its thinness.
Yes.
And I don't know why we're not given this as an option, other than to sell us more junk that we end up throwing away after 2 years. My phone is a 2-year phone with a bad Wi-Fi radio now, and I have almost no way to repair it.
Right. No, exactly.
And that's infuriating.
Yep. Yes. But there is one bit of bright news in the news, and that is Lutris's new update.
Oh, it's so cool.
Yes. So Lutris, for those who don't know, is the Linux launcher that is trying to incorporate all of the PC-compatible goodness into one easy-to-use platform.
It's a great tool.
And it just got so much better. So Proton has been Valve's baby, and that is the secret sauce behind the Steam Deck that makes like 80% of your games just work over inside of Linux. That is a collection of Wine, DXVK, and quite a few other backend APIs that are making all of those translations possible. But Proton is the amalgamation of them. Well, Lutris just got official Proton support. So anything that you can do in Steam, you can now do in Lutris without the need for Steam. Oh,
yep, I'm so excited about this.
Also, they added in itch.io and BattleNet integration. So all of your Blizzard games are now also... Yes.
So I gave this a try this afternoon. So I saw this and I was like, okay, I gotta give it a try. So I upgraded my Lutris. I installed a couple of my games from itch.io. Flawless, just absolute flawless. Worked right out the gate, no issues. I was not able to get BattleNet set up, and I think that's because I'm missing a dependency and I'm waiting on some documentation about how to do that. But I'm on Debian testing, so it's possible I've got something goofy going on. I'm on testing. I didn't try it on like my Pop OS rig. That would probably be a little easier to diagnose and troubleshoot, but I'm still kind of playing with it.
Yeah.
I'm so pumped about this. It makes, if you've ever used Lutris, it's just so dirt simple to use once you get used to the idea of runners. It's really just fantastic. I did a video where I installed Mega Race from Good Old Games. It was actually, I think it was my 3rd video. But if you remember Mega Race, speaking of DOS, it came bundled with my Packard Bell 486 as a kid. And I loved that game.
Mega Race. I did have Pod though on our Pentium 233. So yeah.
There you go. I loved that game, and it was so cheesy. And getting it installed with Lutris is just like, it's a couple of clicks and you're done. And it's just so nice. Like I did that with I have my Brood War disc for StarCraft. Yep. And I was able to just like pop that in. It's the original disc from like 1998, 99 for me.
I think it was Brood War, yeah.
Yeah, Brood War.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I plugged it in and it just worked. It was flawless. The only game in my collection, Warcraft worked really well. The only game I haven't gotten to work is MechWarrior 2. And it's
That's
only
a weird one anyway, because there are 3 distinct binaries for MechWarrior 2. One of them is a DOS-based, one of them is a Windows 95-based. The other is a Windows 95 with hardware acceleration that was based around ATI 3D Rage.
Yes. So here's the extent
I do have
to
some
which
retro cred. Thank you.
Yes, there you go. No, here's the extent to which I got stupid with this. I ended up seeking out a laptop that has an ATI Rage card that's compatible from 1999. It's a Dell. I got a Dell laptop. And it's this big chunky thing with an actual GPU you can remove and pop a new one in, which is kind of cool. I kind of like this. And I was able to get MechWarrior working. I'm in the middle. I got to find I'm going to buy another DOS Dude IDE drive. I don't know if you've seen those.
Yes. Yeah.
Where he's excuse me, he's remaking flash drives, but with an IDE interface, which is cool.
Yeah, we did have for a while some SSDs that were straight up IDE interfaces. They started becoming popular with laptop modders and things like that. And if you know the compact flash standard, that is just the 2.5 inch standard with 6 pins removed. Right. And so a lot of times you could just plug a compact flash card into a laptop, especially if you have like an older one, like a 1998, and then you get a brand new 166 speed CF card. It's faster than most mechanical drives. So
it's great. It's fantastic. I mean, I know there's concerns about like wear leveling and stuff like that. Like some certain parts of the OS
also not my daily driver.
Yeah, right, exactly. So. My big thing about the DOS Dude drive, which I think is super neat, is that it behaves like a regular hard drive to the operating system. So I end up with all these, like, anything that's checking your drive, like it all seems to work flawlessly. I haven't tried it in Amiga yet, but it's handled Linux, it's handled Mac, and it's handled DOS, and it's been fine for me.
Nice.
So I'm a fan. I think it's a pretty good deal.
Very cool. All right,
this Lutris thing is cool.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
I'm very much looking forward to it. No, that's okay.
Yeah, it's super neat.
So we have about 15 or 20 minutes left. I think we're going to just open up for some questions. So if anyone has any questions, literally any hardware from the last 40 years, I think we're pretty much good to cover.
I didn't bring my VIC-20 up, but I got one of those.
Nice. I don't have a VIC-20. I don't have a Commodore 64. I do have a Mac Color Classic and a 2GS. I still have a it's a really cool little PC. It's about this big, about that long. It is a Pentium 233 MMX with 2 PCI slots. And so you can install, and it also has a 4 megabyte S3 Verge on board. And so if you wanted to hook up a Voodoo 3, if you wanted to hook up, an early ATI Rage card and a Sound Blaster and things like that. So you get full, like, DOS, Windows 3, Windows 95, Windows 98 compatibility all in one little, ITX basically sized package.
That's super cool.
So really cool PC. I really like that one. And then I've got a couple. I've got like a Pentium 4 floating around. I've got a couple like that. So.
Ooh, somebody's talking about an ENIAC in the comments.
Ooh.
The ENIAC. That I come from a long line of mainframers. So like including some UNIVAC vets. So ENIAC takes me way, way back.
Yes. From Exploding Lemur, question: what are your thoughts or tips on newly produced accelerators like Bali's Mac accelerators or Terrible Fire's Amiga accelerators? So that is the new coprocessors, basically. I
haven't tried any of the Bali stuff, so I can't really speak to it. I do have a Terrible Fire 68030 in my Amiga 500 right now. It's pretty slick. It I can run on my 500 nearly anything I could do on the 1200, save anything that needs the 1200's graphics. So that's about all I can do. But I mainly use the 500 for gaming at this point. And then I use the 1200 for productivity, which sounds insane, but I use the 1200 as a music thing. So the 1200 for the music that I make for the channel is becoming an integral part of the workflow, and I'm trying to get better with a tracker. That's my goal with it. I've been eyeing up a Terrible Fire card for the 1200 too. Just it would enable me to do just about anything under the sun with it. The only thing is I can't find like, what is it, a 68060? It's not going to happen. That's unobtainium at this point.
Yeah,
I'm not spending like $2,000 on an accelerator card at this point.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way about some of the vintage hardware that I want. Like, I would love a Voodoo 5000. I'm not going to go spend, $800 for an original. No. I'm not going to go spend $1,500 on a Voodoo 5500, one of the new make ones. Like, they're really freaking cool. I would so want one in my collection, but like at this point my collection budget is like maybe $100 a month. And
sure, no, I'm with you. You've got other things you're doing right now.
I'm doing. Like I just added this to my collection. That's the Radeon 7. I finally got a hold of it.
Oh, there you go.
And it's one of the graphics cards I've always wanted to have. I've got a GTX 690 now. I've got quite a few others, and it's like, it's the first 7 nanometer graphics card. It's the first 7 nanometer consumer part ever. I needed one. And is it worth it now? Hell no. It was still $300. Like anything today at $300 will blow it away. But I needed it.
And if you can find something cool to do with it, even if that something cool is just to like be inspired by it, that's worth something.
Totally.
Like I picked up a Macintosh SE and I fixed it up and I got it functional. I installed System 7 on it and I got SimCity working on it and did some other cool stuff. And like, am I going to use it every day? Absolutely not. It's a black and white Mac. It's a compact Mac. It's not going to run too many games that I couldn't run on.
With a 512 by 384. No, I'm not going to run.
But it's inspiring to look at because I remember the feeling I had seeing them in the computer lab. And that was my motivation behind like getting I bought a 2GS from an estate sale last year. And that's a way to do it, by the way. You gotta like look for like a lot of this vintage stuff. The owners, now their children are selling this stuff and they're willing to give it to, or practically give it to somebody who is willing to take it and love it the way that their parents did.
Right.
So for like, that's how I got a 2GS for a very good deal because I was talking to the kids and the kids were like, we don't want to just scalp it. We want it to go to somebody who's actually going to appreciate it.
Right.
I was like, that's me. Let me do it. And we managed to work out a deal. It's so much of this stuff. If it inspires you, that's good enough.
No, I still am looking for my 2 original computers. So I had the first computer that was mine was a Macintosh LC2. And I want one of those. And you can find
I think
them.
Somebody has one locally.
Dude.
Yeah, I think somebody's got one locally. I just saw it post up on Craigslist.
Yeah. The other computer that I want, I've accepted as pretty much unobtainium. It is I know the exact model too. It is a compact Presario CDTV 520. It is an all-in-one 12-inch 800 by 600 486 DX2. They came with about 4 megabytes of RAM. They could go all the way to I think 24 megs of RAM. It had a floppy and a CD drive built into the front of it. It had really nice speakers on the front, but it was a nice little compact all-in-one unit. And that was my first PC. There's another special thing about it though. The model name, CDTV. It had a CD drive. It had a TV tuner in the back.
Oh, okay.
In Windows
cool.
3.1, it had TV input.
That's fantastic.
It was the
that is
coolest
super
freaking thing
cool.
ever. I want one.
That is so neat. I did not even know that.
That
feature
is one
of
I
it.
will put bounty money on. like if you
there
find
you
me
go.
one, I will pay. So
now, what's funny about it is I think I already have an alert for CDTV because of Amiga.
okay, yeah.
So like, there's the CDT, which is not the thing you're talking about. So if I see one, I'll let you know.
Yeah. They also came in a CDS variant, which was just the CD-ROM variant. So there's like a CD512, a CD516, CD522. But yeah, the CDTV 520 is the one that I want.
That sounds so cool.
But
that sounds
anything in that realm though. Like, yes.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
I one of the things about old hardware is it can just be so inspiring to like see how they like cobbled together something just so basic into something that like actually changed lives. And like I got the Commodore 64. There are people who ran entire like multi-million-dollar businesses off of a Commodore 64.
Right.
Like, it isn't nothing.
Right.
Even though it only has 64 kilobytes of RAM.
I started this channel because at 11 years old, I got given a couple of 386 PCs that were mine that I could take apart and put back together, and I was hooked ever since then. So it's why I did what I did for 15 years. It's why I do what I do now.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
No, it's so cool.
Let's see. We got a couple more. Sorry, scrolling up. We missed some here. Let me just find a random one. Any expertise with IBM RISC 6000 systems? Difficult to find documentation. Ooh.
Okay, so a little bit of working on like the RS 6000. I actually have an RS 6000 case in my basement right now without the rest of the computer. I haven't actually, so that was a little before my time. And I haven't run across a working one, but I did see a completely dead one in a server room that looked like it had completely overheated. So it was as though the fans took in so much gunk without anybody ever cleaning them, and like it just locked up.
Yeah.
And so I haven't actually gotten to work on one directly. But I will say there's some really cool stuff you can do with emulation around, if you want to go older than that with IBM, the Hercules emulator is still a good one, and it does a lot of cool stuff.
No, I forgot about that, yeah.
Yeah, that's super neat if you want to like actually try mainframing by yourself and see how it works. Otherwise, you can do some QEMU stuff around PowerPC, IBM stuff, but like you're going to run into problems because IBM vendor locks so much of their stuff that like emulating it is very challenging.
Same thing with Sun and Solaris. If you're getting into that
Sun
kind of I did
like
have
anything Arc.
I've had a couple Sun Ultra 45s walk through my workshop, and so I've had my time with those. Those were fun.
I recently, so I have an AS400 in the basement. Being a COBOL developer, it's kind of part of it.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of fun. It's nerdy and like there's Telnet, and that's still a thing, and there's all kinds of like pieces to it. It's interesting, and it can be completely useless unless you plan on making a career in legacy systems, which, like I know I saw one of the comments was about COBOL compilers and like learning it on Linux. By far your best option there, because you'll pay nothing for it, is the GNU COBOL compiler, because it's open source. You can usually install it right from the package manager. It's packaged in Debian and Ubuntu and the derivatives. So that one's usually a pretty good one. And I know it's on Arch. I installed it on Arch once. Not sure about Fedora, but it's usually, if it's not in there, I'm sure there's a repo for it. But GNU COBOL is fantastic, and it's a great way to get started if you're interested in COBOL, because there's no cost. Any other compiler, you're going to be spending thousands of dollars just to get one if they even sell it to you.
Yeah.
If you're an individual, they might just never return your calls. I'm still waiting on IBM. So IBM, if you're listening, call me.
Yeah. Good luck on my channel. IBM doesn't call me either.
It's like I don't want to be sponsored by I don't seek out a sponsorship from too many people, but like IBM,
right.
call me.
I have a couple where it's like, no, we should do business together. Like
like I'm doing COBOL stuff, and like I want to do a COBOL video about your product, but I need you to send me your product.
Right.
So like,
right. Yeah, we can make this work.
Yeah. There we go.
Let's see. Try looking in thrift stores for that compact computer. The thing it was a fairly low volume computer, and
there you go.
Living in Oregon, we don't have the largest of tech centers. Like, I know we're home to Intel. Intel's campus is an hour from my house. And there have been some pretty amazing gets on like Craigslist from things that have been like test PCs that have been discarded, where in 2006 I got a dual CPU Xeon based on late socket 604 early Core 2 Duo CPUs with CPUs and memory and graphics cards in a Chenburo case and a 1,000-watt power supply for like $200. Like,
that's
those
fantastic.
deals are out there. The problem is when it comes to like enthusiast stuff or even like general consumer stuff, there's not a lot here. So, you know, we might occasionally come across, you know, a Mac SE30 or, you know, some random Pentium 4 that someone thinks is worth its weight in gold because it happens to have, you know, an X1600 in it or something. Gosh, yeah.
I live in the land of Mac, so like we very much benefit from the Silicon Prairie.
Yeah.
And there's all between all the Apple distributors that were here, I mean, they're not anymore, but you know, we used to be the go-to place in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And then between that and just the massive investment we had, seems like, at least in early computing at the school level, there's lots of stuff we come across. Like I don't have a hard time finding things. One of the problems is finding things that somebody properly has priced. You know, somebody will be like, oh, here's a Macintosh SE30. You can turn it into an aquarium, $800.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can turn it into an aquarium. $800.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem around here is everyone thinks they have gold around here, and it's literally e-waste. We have people trying to sell like 15-year-old graphics cards for the retail price they were 15 years ago. And it's like there's not a vintage market for those even. Like yeah, congratulations, you have a 9800 or 9600 GT just like everyone else from that day.
Yes.
I'll give you $20. No, they're asking like $175. It's like
I had, what was it, an Nvidia 960, which isn't anything. Like it's nothing. It's not. and I had it, and I like threw it on a bulletin board, you know, like, hey, does anybody want this? And somebody was like, you shouldn't be doing this. You can get like $200 for that. And I'm like, can you? I don't think, like, you can list it for that. That doesn't mean you should.
Doesn't mean people are buying. And even even at the peak of the market, I would have a hard time spending $200 on a 960 during the crypto crisis. Because the 960 was a 2 gig card, unless you had the 4 gig variant, but even the 4 gig variant was like, it's not great.
No.
And a 1050 Ti is a better buy.
I'm pretty sure I bought that card on discount somewhere for like maybe $70, $80.
Right. And
you know,
I think it was a $160 card new.
I bought it near the end. Like, it was one of those things where like I needed a card not because I wanted a game, but because I needed something for like a really specific program. Like I was doing CAD or something. I don't even remember.
Right.
And I needed a card that could run this. So I'm like, fine, I'll buy the cheapest one I can do.
Right.
And like people saying like I should try to make a profit on it. It's just stupid. Like, no, nobody, because I won't actually sell it for that. People aren't really buying it. They're just listing it.
Yep. But yeah, no, there's a reason I don't do more vintage content on my channel, and it's because there's nothing around me. I would love to do, you know, Craigslist shopping and find all these weird, you know, esoteric or, you know, put together budget systems, you know, do the Tech Yes City, get on Gumtree and put together a gaming PC for $150. People are selling a you know, 9600 GT for $150 around here. Like, that's just the used market I live in. And so if it doesn't exist on eBay or sometimes Facebook Marketplace, it literally doesn't exist for me. So
it's ridiculous. The one splurge I did recently is I actually bought myself a recapped, refreshed Amiga 1200. And it's mainly because they're like impossible to find in the States. And at least they're impossible to find around me, it seems like. So that was my one like splurge, and I bought that. It didn't need anything. I didn't have to recap anything. There was nothing wrong with it. Nice. I just bought it and loved it.
Well, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to have a handheld 386 to play with.
Yes,
so.
That's so exciting. I can't wait to see what you do with it. That'll be cool.
I will let you know how it goes. And like I said, we might work out a loan program where you could at least check it out.
I would love that.
Do a video and all that kind of fun stuff. So
it would be fantastic. I appreciate that.
Well, Veronica, thank you so much for being on the show. I know,
absolutely.
I know it was a little late notice, but thank you very much.
It worked out. It was totally fine. It was wonderful to be here, and thanks to everybody for the comments. I've been trying to read as we talk. It's pretty good.
Yes, lots of COBOL chat in the chat.
I saw that.
Anyway, if you haven't subscribed to Veronica's channel, links down in the video description. Also, where to find her on social media. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to Craft Computing if you haven't done so already, and if you want to support the channel, check out craftcomputing.store. Give yourself a rocks glass, some whiskey stones, a coaster, and a whole bunch more, with more merch every single month. So check back often. Veronica, anything good of the order? Anything you want to plug before we go?
New t-shirts that I sell nerdy t-shirts. I'm wearing my 321 backup shirt right now. There's enough backups for everybody. So
that looks like something out of the Epos Vox wardrobe, and I love it.
Yes, it's very inspired by that. And I just added another one that says test your backups in the form of a ransom note, because don't be held hostage to untested backups.
I like it. I'm definitely a fan of your 568B. Also, I've got one of those.
Oh, that's a classic shirt from my channel. I like that one.
Yes. Yeah, any networking video that I do, I usually wear that one. So.
Yes, it's great.
Anyway, thank you all so much for joining. And also make sure to join the Patreon. You'll get exclusive access to the Discord server. You can chat with myself and all the other hosts from Talking Heads, and join the even more super secret after party, which we'll be joining here in probably about 20 minutes, where we video chat with everyone else. And Veronica, you're more than welcome to join if you feel you want to. So
thanks.
It is a school night though, so
it's a school night for me, so I don't know if I have time tonight, but I appreciate it and thank you. It's been a lot of fun tonight.
You're welcome. All right, so thank you all so much for joining, and as always, we will see you next week. Cheers, everyone.
Bye.
And we're out.
Okay.